Small town feel with big time ideas. After all, you are entitled to Brad's opinion. Here's your host, Brad Allard.
Hey everybody, today we're going to have Jeff Kelly's opinion about what's going on in real estate. So if you have questions, send them in because I have a lot of questions. But apparently Jeff is the expert for Burleson, the go-to man in Burleson. Is that right?
We'll see about
You
that.
need a little closer on the mic, buddy.
How's that?
You can actually move the mic.
Okay.
Yeah, you're about to fall over. No, we'll see. How long have you been in real estate?
15 years this year.
One smooth ride, isn't it?
Oh boy, it's just been a dream come true.
Just like when you were a small boy playing in the yard. I want to sell this one day. Is that not exactly the case?
Didn't quite go that way.
Yeah, it never does it? But We're going to talk about what's going on in Burleson with the rates and what it's doing to the real estate market. You know, I have some other friends that are in real estate adjacent businesses like mortgage and title companies, and they're telling me the same story, that it's getting tough, and it's been tough. But we'll go through all of that. But first, let's talk about the sponsors, make all this possible. You probably know many of these sponsors. I'm sure you've been at our place before.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. You're a frequent guest, are you? Okay. That's good, because I am. I go there. I like a piece of furniture there. I'm so often. But our place in Otto is always a good place to do business. I do see a lot of business being done there. Do you go to that real estate meeting they have every other Thursday?
I've been real lax on it this summer because I've been working on getting my broker's license and taking lots of classes. So a lot of those things I'm not able to do. But yeah, it's been a staple since the 80s.
Right. We every other Thursday. The men in my Sunday school class and I get together. That we call it Dan's Dawn Patrol because it's really early. But by the time we're leaving, they're coming in, and so we sometimes we recognize people in there. So it's great. And also, Gina's Pizza has been doing really good business. I don't know if you've been there yet, but it's really good. And I like the atmosphere, the blues music, and it's just a good place to get a pizza and a beer or whatnot. Yep. Also, Wild Cigar. I was just there this morning, in fact, talking to Nathan. He's got things going on in July, as always. They got a sponsor coming in, I think about 2 weeks. Not a sponsor, one of the vendors. That's what they call them. One of these vendors are going to come in and do what they call a cut and light. Basically, they'll snip the cigar. Are you a cigar smoker by any chance?
No.
Well, if you know anybody that is, send them there. Also, there's good for gift certificates and stuff. I do that a lot. Is that we will buy gift certificates for those, because it's also just it's a good place just to hang out and do business.
Right.
Get a really good bar and all that. So here I'm just getting all this stuff set up here. I've been doing this show for nearly 5 years, and I still stumble and mumble and fumble trying to get all the shares in and all that. It's an ongoing source of amusement for Taylor. Also, thank you to Southern Gym over at the Standard. They got lots going on as always. They always have sales. I mean, Gayla, if you ever met Gayla, you'd be really impressed with her because she really knows how to run a business. She has a lot of promotions going on. Plus, the really smart thing is for the men who take their wives or girlfriends or whomever there, and looking at jewelry is a big thing for ladies. A lot of men, it's something they go in to buy a gift for, right? You're going in, you're buying a gift, you have something in mind maybe. Women like to shop, right? So for the men in the group, they have a little bullpen off to the side. You watch TV, give you a shot. Dr. Pepper or bourbon, either one.
Big TV to watch.
Yeah, you've been there before, have you?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, shopping for whom?
My wife and I were in there. I had a little a Saturday where I did nothing but go do small business stuff all one day. Yeah, and that was one of the places we visited.
Well, it's really a good place. My wife works there, by the way, and I've been always making that point because she really enjoys the jewelry, and she's they're very discreet about who comes in to shop, but Robin has told me that people make a long drive for it. Right. They'll come in from 2.5 hours away or something.
She's pretty well known.
Yeah, they come in from Waco or Stephenville. I'm thinking, how many jewelry stores do they pass to get to Southern China?
Right.
Also, this is a good deal here. Brenda Ramirez, twomatescleaning.com/Burleson, 817-764-0733. You might could use her. I guess when you get a house to sell, you want somebody to come and clean, do a deep clean. She does it, and you pay her based on the rating you give her. Well, her crew, right? She'll send a crew out, and you pay her based on the rating. And I know real estate people that use her. And so, they're going to show a house or whatever else, and that's a big deal, presenting a house. We're going to talk about that, what detracts from it or makes it look better. You know, what you need to do to make it look better. But anyway, call Brenda if you need. She has all these different plans. A lot of us in the B&I group use her, and we use her for our parents. And she also does a lot of work for businesses. She does the Windmiller building, for example.
Right.
So, also thank you to OPRO Roofing. You probably know them. They're at Burleson Business. John Williams, 817-734-2756. He's going to come in and inspect my roof in a couple of weeks. I do it once a year, and it didn't cost me anything. And he'll tell me or tell anybody, your roof needs repairing or it doesn't. We had this hailstorm about 14 months ago. He comes and checked my roof out and said, no, you got lucky and there's no damage. I'm thinking, that's great. I expected the truth, but it's nice not to be upsold,
Right, for sure.
Your house is about to fall down. So, and then of course, here you are. Look at that picture.
The legend himself.
That's right. So you can call apparently, 817-781-0546 or at 817-720-6300. Which one do you prefer?
Just cell phone?
Yeah, cell phone is probably a lot easier. And Jeff at jeffkellyrealty.com with the Wethington agency. I got to make sure to say that, right?
Right. Get me put in realtor jail if not.
Yeah, well, so you said you've been in this about, 15 years? 15
years. I got licensed September 30th of 2009.
Well, what got you into it? You were saying there was like a job change or some career change.
I did acquisitions for a company that bought and sold houses. They bought vacant lots for building. We did a couple of developments and just really blowing and going up till 2008. You remember what happened then.
Oh, yeah.
But I was paid salary and bonus based on production. And it kind of got to a point where they just really couldn't afford to have anybody on salary and bonus anymore. Said, what if we sent you to real estate school? You get your license, you can represent us as our buyer's agent. And so did that. Took me about 6 months to go through the schooling. By then, the market was just tanking so bad that by the time I got rolling, I was basically just on the street. We went from 253 transactions in 07 to under 30 in 2008, and basically that was just liquidating inventory.
Right.
So,
yeah, I remember that time, and just how a lot of these mortgage brokers just like Countrywide and others went bankrupt. And the thing about Countrywide, we used them, and then they found out later they were doing some pretty fly-by-night operations.
Right.
That's why I use local. I use local people now.
Yes, me too.
I use Camco. I used Sammy Joe Campbell and Candy Gal for 2 other transactions when they were in other companies. So that's why I endorse them so much, because I want to know where they are when I need to call them. So that's what I tell people about, like OPRO and others. You want people to do business locally.
Absolutely.
Because you can track them down, I guess. But I remember in 2008, the causes of it, I believe, I understood the causes, but trying to teach that to high schoolers and other to college kids. Well, here's what happened. These collateralized debt options and all this other stuff are like, what? So I did.
Nobody knew what those were.
Yeah.
It's just.
Yeah, it was like very, very confusing.
Right.
And even to some people, I'm sure they were experienced in all this business. But so you get into real estate. Were you in the Burleson area at the time?
I actually lived in Godley from 2000 to 2005. We moved here in 2006, but I didn't know anybody here. I have no family here. My daughter actually finished school in Godley, so we hung out with Godley people mostly. I didn't know anybody here in Burleson, so kind of started with nothing. We still went to church in Godley at that time. Didn't have that, and some of the things that these networks that a real estate agent may have, I didn't really have that. So when I say I started from the bottom, that's exactly where I was.
It's a lot of hustle and whatever else. One thing that always amuses me is people think that a real estate agent is like, oh, I got so many clients coming in. Oh, here's your house. Oh, thank you for the check.
Right.
I couldn't do it. I've gotten to know other real estate agents and all the details they have to go through and all the hair pulling and all the near fatal events. You're working on a deal and all of a sudden the wife decides, oh, I don't like the color of the paint or whatever. Or you find out, oh, the rate isn't going to be what I hoped it had been, and then on and on and on.
Or somebody dies,
yeah. I've heard lots of stories from Shandy Stogsdill, who's now part of your group, right?
Right. Yep.
Yeah. And so, she'd tell us stories about how they'd work on a deal and work on it, and right at the very last minute, some glitch would come up. She sold my daughter's house about 16 months ago, and I was getting all worked up, and she's like, relax, this is normal, because the potential buyer had a small issue with this, or we found out you have a little bit of roof damage, or blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, we're not going to sell this house. And she's like, relax. I guess that's the attitude you have to take.
And there's so many things that we do in the background that the buyer, the seller, they never even know about it. We just get it handled. And you kind of got to know the personality of your client. Because if it's somebody that's like a worry ward anyway, I mean, if you're calling them every time some little thing gets off the track, you'll drive them crazy, and they'll hate you when the transaction's over. Or you get somebody that feels like they're out of control, need a little more control. I mean, those are the people you've got to talk to them on the regular, even if it's, hey, nobody even called about your house this week. That's all I have to say this week. A lot of people really appreciate that. So you have to know who your client is to be able to know which bedside manner works the best.
Well, when Shandy was taking care of my daughter, and I texted her or called her and said, hey, what's the action on the house? And she goes, there isn't any. And I'm like, should I be worried? She goes, no, that's normal. You'll go like 2 weeks with nothing, and you'll get 3 offers in one day. Right. Now, it also depends on where you live and what's going on. Like my sister and my brother-in-law lived in Arlington, in the Mansfield School District, but they sold their house and moved near my parents in Corsicana, and they had an open house. They didn't even list it. Right. They just had an open house, and they had 5 offers that day. Yep. And so, but this also was before the interest rates went through the roof. Right. And so, but it was that quick. And I thought it'd be that quick for, my daughter, but it wasn't.
I had one when the rates first went up. This lady, she's actually my fence neighbor, wanted to put her house on the market. It was one of those that would have put it on the market on Friday, held an open house on Sunday, and picked an offer Sunday night, and maybe 50 people would have walked through it. We had so-and-so date picked, and she was painting the house herself, and she said, I'm killing myself. Can I have 2 more weeks to get this house ready? And sure, whatever, it's your house. You're the boss. And in that time, the rates jumped about 1.5% from where they were. And I mean, everybody went to the sideline. And it took us a month to sell that house. And it was just like, overnight.
It is. And, the impact of interest rates, I think, are sometimes we were so focused on like an inflation rate and all this other stuff. But those interest rates are killing people. Yep. And I was talking to my son yesterday, and he desperately wants to buy a house. Right. And he's got a good income. He's an engineer for Boeing. And so he's not, an hourly worker or anything like that. But between the increase in the cost of housing and the interest rates, it's just not manageable. Right. And he's not alone. That whole age group of his, 32, and my daughter's 29, they're all going through this. Right. And I wish we could change that, but I don't know how.
My first house cost $16,000. That was in 1990, and didn't have to put very much down. But I mean, the median here is $375. So holy smokes, these people that start at $370. I mean, that's the size house my doctor lived in 20 years ago. Right.
Well, we built our house in 1991. We live out on East Renfro. And it cost about $95, including the acre we're on and that kind of thing. I know it's worth a lot now. I get a monthly update from Zillow, which I don't know if is that accurate or not. Sort of. They'll give me a range, but I couldn't afford that house now. Right. I couldn't even come close to it. Right. And so we've been there for 33 years. We moved in on my birthday, which is a couple of days from now, so you can send your cash and checks up here. Okay. But we moved in that day 3 years ago, and we didn't think it was going to be our house forever. Right. But it has been. And now that we've done our renovation, we're doing
this is it.
They're going to wheel us out on the gurney, as I say, because I'm not moving. Right. But, even if I wanted to move, I couldn't really, because there's no way I can get the rate I have now. And no way I could afford the kind of house I have now. Right. Even if, sold it, I have some good equity and all this other stuff, and you put that equity to a new house, at best, I'd be hold and serve.
Right. We call that the golden parachute, not the golden parachute, the golden handcuffs.
Golden handcuffs, yeah.
I've got to almost double my housing cost, and then I have to double my rate as well. And basically what that did, I mean, I had 9 transactions closed last month. People are still moving, but the people like me that would just move for the heck of it, that's none of that's going on. I mean, it's people that have to move. It's investors selling out. It's things like that.
I was going to ask you about an article I read in the Dallas paper or the Star Telegram, one of the two, about how many homes are owned for rent. But I'd like to save that towards near the end, because that's a big deal in my house. But I look at my mortgage, and with mortgage and taxes and insurance, I'm still paying considerably less than what the going rent is.
Yep.
And my daughter is looking to rent an apartment, and she says, well, it's only
$1,800 a month.
17, 18, something like that. And I'm like, only, holy cow. And that's why so many, I think, of my kids' generation are so bitter about things.
Right.
They're angry at Biden, they're angry at Trump, they're angry at all of them, and so because they feel like they've been had or
everything is so expensive that
how does that affect your business?
Well, like I say, it took so many people out of the market that were just moving for fun, and
that ain't fun. They have an idea of fun, I could tell you, after loading boxes.
Right. The difference in payment. I mean, and there were people that I were working when the rates jumped that, man, we'll see you next year. Maybe it'll be better. You work for 6 months. The reason they didn't buy is because we would go over on Saturday at 10 o'clock a.m. and stand in line to get into a house, and then compete with 20 other people to see if they'd even. It wasn't that they were, couldn't find the right house or whatever. I mean, it was nothing back then. You may make 4 or 5 offers before you got one accepted.
Yeah. I remember there was a period not that long ago around COVID.
Yep.
Where people were getting well over the asking price.
Yep.
They were selling their house, and like, for example, my daughter was looking at a house, and they put in an offer, and they put $10,000 more than the asking price, and they got outbid by $30,000. And this house was okay at best. We're not talking about something in Highland Park.
Right. It was adequate.
Adequate. Right. It's a good starter home.
Yep.
But I hear from other real estate agents about how they put in a bid for a house and got outbid by several $1,000s. They thought they were being extravagant in their bid,
right? And
somebody had topped them by $10,000 or $15,000. It's like, up to $100,000 more than asking price. I'm like,
right.
Why are they so desperate to get into a house?
I think that it was like anything else. It's people are competitive, and it's weird. I mean, you'll see it in the stock market. You'll see it everywhere. Everybody buys when it's going this way. Nobody buys when it's coming back down.
Which is really kind of the opposite of what you should do.
Yep.
My professor in college on investment said, you make your money in the bear markets.
Right.
And so, but, I'm just hearing these stories about people, they said they're overbidding so much that it's going to take like a decade to reacquire the equity.
Right.
And it's like, is it really worth it? Now, I understand if you have to move. And I have a friend that works for Zillow, which, is that a bad word to you?
I've learned to embrace them instead of,
They're not. Yeah, that's what we think. Well, he says he's getting a lot of business from California. And so people there, they could sell their homes so much more than they go for here, that they had all that extra cash. Right. And that's why they were outbidding everybody and driving the price up, particularly in Austin. It does that, okay, so I made $500,000. I can outbid just about anybody, and get a house. And
the perception of value, it's a house there and a house here. They're still both sticks and bricks and cement, but why is that one worth so much more? But in your brain, your financial thermostat is here for a house, and you come down here and can buy a very nice house for half of what you paid there.
Right.
Plus, it's cheaper to live here and some other things.
Well, my sister, the one I mentioned earlier, many years ago lived in San Jose, and when they sold their house there and moved to the house they're in now, they almost could pay cash for it,
right? Because
of the difference in value, and so it's eye-opening, to say the least.
Yeah, for sure.
And a lot of people think that the Californians are moving out of here and they're going to change their politics and all that. No.
Not the ones I'm at.
Not the ones that my buddy's meeting either, because they're all like, this is the reason we're getting the heck out of Dodge.
They all think conservatively or more conservatively and wanted to get away from the crazies and the lockdown stuff and the things that we really didn't go through here.
And they're also I read stuff about California, and the ideas they have on taxation is just going to be unbelievable. And the $20 an hour rates are killing all the restaurants and all that business. But Texas does get a lot of business. Now we also have, a pretty friendly tax rate,
right,
and all that, and with that income, state income tax and all that, a lot of people say, hey, that's a pretty good deal.
It helps when you're used to paying it somewhere else.
But as far as Burleson itself, I'm reading a lot about what's going on in the markets. I read the Wall Street Journal, among others, and they're talking about, the housing markets are not good in a lot of markets. How is our market doing?
The numbers say that we're holding our own. And I brought some of that. We can nerd out on that if you want to.
Sure, let's nerd out.
Median sales price this year in Burleson, $375. It's up 3%. Well, that's just barely it's not outpacing inflation.
No, it is not.
Everything is up just a little bit, but there's the scary numbers that you'll hear on TV and all these places is, the number of homes for sale is up 34% over last year. Ooh. But you look at it and it's 296 to 221. It's just very small numbers wise, but the percentages look weird,
right?
Because of where we've come from.
Percentages can distort the truth of what's going on,
right? And that's what makes the big headlines and gets the clicks is those weird numbers. But for these people that never get past the headline, those are the ones that, well, maybe we shouldn't move or whatever, and maybe. And we're super lucky here in Burleson. I mean, we've got the schools are awesome. Police force can't be beat. The economic development people are so aggressive here. I grew up in a town about the size of, it's 15,000 people that went the other way.
Where at?
Levelland, which is out west of Lubbock. And Lubbock has sucked all those little towns around it completely dry. Where here, Burleson, Mansfield, Weatherford, all these smallerish towns. I mean, they're holding their own.
Yeah, and doing
against
better.
Fort Worth.
And a lot of people, when I moved here in '91, and I had taught here for 3 years prior, so I've been part of the community since '88. We didn't have anything.
Right.
You go to Fort Worth for everything.
Right.
And we had Dairy Twin, which Taylor still laments its demise.
God, me too.
And
I miss it so much.
We had these kind of small mom and pop restaurants, and we had Bransom's grocery store and all that.
Right.
But if you wanted certain things, you had to go to Fort Worth. Majority of people worked in Fort Worth, and now it's almost a self-containing a community. And I've talked to other real estate agents, and the three things you mentioned is exactly what they say: schools, police, business.
Right.
And that's why people move here. They, being there on 35 has certain advantages, also certain disadvantages. But it has some advantages because it's quick access to the city if you need it. Right. But we're getting to the point now you don't really need to go to the city for very much.
Unless you just want to change the scenery.
Yeah, that's pretty much.
Yeah.
If you want to go to a restaurant, or to shopping just for, a day, fine. But if you don't have to leave town to go to a decent restaurant or get whatever you need here.
Yep.
And I think that's been part of it.
And so many things to do for a small town. There's something going on here all the time. Family, just lots of things for
that
for
plaza.
people to
I
do.
think really helped a bunch. The Vera Calvin Plaza.
Yeah.
Because now we have a center to do things at. Back well before it was built, it was just a gravel parking lot basically, and we'd try to have community events there, or maybe at the softball fields or whatever. And then they built Chisenhall, and then they built the plaza, and they're talking about other things at the city council level, the city planning level, but they just talk right now.
Right.
I know there's an action plan about having some sort of convention center kind of thing.
I hope so.
Yeah, but I don't know if I'll be alive to see it.
Right, that's for sure.
But anyway, that I always thought Burleson was kind of exempt from a lot of the stuff I was reading, in the sense that our businesses our real estate is not declining.
I had one a month ago that, we still have multiple offers. We still have all these things. We don't, the time on the market has increased some, but I think the average is 45 days. Who can't wait 45 days to sell their house?
Well, when you're used to reading about people walking away with 5 offers in one day, I think they must think something's wrong.
The best analogy I have, it's like one day you woke up and normally you're able to walk 3 miles an hour where you go, and then you get up and you're able to walk 30 miles an hour. And man, this is great. Look at all these. Look at this. And then a couple of years later, you go back to you can only walk 3 miles an hour, but you still remember everything. And it just takes people a while to cycle out of that. I remember in 2008, there were so many down payment assistance programs, zero down loans, and people, I can remember people leaving the title company with their earnest money. They didn't even put earnest money up. They did it as a deposit, but they got it back at closing. And to go from that, I mean, just overnight, it just stopped. And now all of a sudden, you've got to wait for these people to catch up. With I've got to have 5% down now. Which I didn't have to have the same time last year or whatever. And it's one of those cycles that takes a while to catch up.
And I think it's also important when you see house listings, you read them very closely, because quite often they'll say 20% down or 10% down.
Right.
And you say, that house, I might be able to afford it.
It's
and
amazing how many people don't know.
I mean, well, an average home, you said 375. What's 5% of that?
It's a lot.
It's a lot of money.
Yeah.
It's a pretty big check you're writing. And, or they'll say, you could buy this house, particularly when you have these mass houses being built.
Right.
And when they'll say, you can, get in for $1,800 a month. That's if you put a third of it down or something like that.
Yep.
Do you sell a lot of houses in these new developments, like the one on East Renfro?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Almost exclusively new construction.
Really? Is that different?
Accidentally.
Is that better than,
It's easier.
Easier, is it?
Right.
Okay.
You've got to get up to a certain price point to qualify, but I mean, they're the ones buying rate downs, buying rates down. I mean, they need to move that stuff too.
I forget the name, Hunter Estates or something like that on East Renfro. The one that's near what used to be Bennett's is now Renfro Winstop.
Yeah, D.R. Horton. And that thing just...
Yeah, it just popped up like a toadstool, didn't it? And are most of those houses gone?
Yep.
Well, I knew they would sell quick because they were... What was the opening rate at the time? I heard $275, but they higher than that now?
It was $275, but you wanted a kitchen with that?
Yeah, that's right.
That's like the strip down. The last one I did was $350.
Yeah, that's what also got me about mass-produced deals. Is like, you wanted electricity with that house.
Right, yeah.
It's like buying a new car. You wanted all 4 tires.
Right.
I figured that $275 was basically, here's the key, we'll see you later. If you want anything other than just the very basics.
Right.
If you wanted
to turn the AC on, just raise the windows. And it'll come on.
Yeah, if you want upgraded systems or better carpet or a better counter, whatever, it costs you more. When my wife and I were looking at homes back in 91, Burleson didn't have much of that.
Right.
They didn't have Oak Valley yet. All those homes. Oak Valley was there, but it was like a very small, it was like a couple of streets and much older homes. But none of all that new stuff and all that stuff around Renfro, right? And Hidden Creek. In town, they had some decent houses, but there weren't many for sale.
Right.
The Cliffs had a couple for sale, and you walk into that, and it's like walking into a time warp because they're still late 1960s decor and that kind of thing. But we didn't have developments.
Right.
Even that, the Meadows, around Taylor Elementary, that wasn't there yet.
Right.
And I remember they came in, those houses came in around 65, 66.
When I got here in 98, I'll remember it just like it was yesterday. Right there at the Alsbury exit, there's a billboard, Choice Homes, from the 80s for brand new homes. And I think it's the ones that were over there behind Walmart. That was in 1998. But I guess that's one of the first...
You talking about the Super Walmart or the old Walmart?
The new Walmart, the newest Walmart. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Keswick Gardens is the name of that little development over there.
Okay. See, Walmart, as old timers remember, it used to be where Hobby Lobby was.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So sometimes I get people on the show, and supposed to be talking about X or Y, and we'll talk about, do you remember that place? We start talking about the old days, that kind of thing. Like, remember China Doll was right next to it, and that kind of thing. But
I remember that one.
Yeah.
Yep.
But it's But we didn't have anything to choose from like that. That's why we ended up building, because the real estate agent at the time said, well, I know a builder, and he's looking to build inventory so you can do it at a reduced rate.
Right.
And we bought this piece of property. It was on foreclosure, and, we spent a little bit extra money on it. My wife did all the shopping for the interior.
Right.
But as far as choices, we didn't have many. But I wanted to live in the town I taught in.
Right.
And my wife at the time worked out of Fort Worth, so it wasn't a big deal. But that's changed now. And I understand that we got, Rocky Bransom's outfit's going to be putting out a bunch of houses.
Right.
How do you connect with those guys? Do you work for the developer or do you work for the buyer on those things?
Most of the time, you wind up with a buyer and their scenario fits this builder or this builder or whatever. And so we represent them as a buyer's agent, and they're happy to have a customer in front of them that they didn't have to pay to get. So,
well, like Rocky Bransom's development, the Chisholm development, it's probably about 3 years before they're breaking ground,
right,
and all that. But it's going to go up quick, and they got a planned community and all this other stuff. And so basically, when people see it, they're going to be dealing with you, not so much with Rocky Bransom.
It's a little bit of both. I think that it's about 50-50. The agents that actually bring buyers to them, and then they've got their own marketing and things where they in their own sales force.
There's also another thing that this is off the topic, not off the topic, but I didn't prep you for this one. There was a court ruling about the agent's fees. Can you explain that to me?
I will do my best.
All right.
Yep, and I'll take you back to the 1990s, back in the old days, with Texas real estate law. Everybody represented the seller of the home. So you could come to me and say, hey, we want to buy a house. I could go show you houses and help you through the process, but I could not, quote unquote, represent you. And I still can't today without something in writing. So anything that you tell me, I have to go tell the seller. And to give you an example of that, the first house I bought from a guy, and he told me all the time, Jeff, I don't represent you, I represent the seller. So he didn't suggest we get an inspection. The seller's disclosure showed that there had been active termites in the house and had been treated. Didn't suggest, hey, maybe we get a termite guy over here to make sure they haven't come back. 2 or 3 of these things that, it didn't put us in bankruptcy, but it caused us some heartache as we went along. I mean, we moved in the next day, the water heater's out because somebody left the water off and the heat on that blew the thing up. Things like that when I represent a buyer today, we have due diligence, we go through all that, but not if I have to represent the seller. So anyway, they decided that buyers needed to be represented. And at some point in history, I don't know if it was in the 40s or 50s or whenever it was, if I come to your house to list your house, show you my marketing plan, and to do this and to get your house sold for this price, I'm going to charge you this fee. And you agree to that, but there's about a 99% chance that another agent is going to bring the buyer, because there's no way I can know all the buyers for this house. There's no amount of, there's just no way. So if in that case, I'm going to give them half my money that you're paying me, I'm going to split that with a buyer's agent, and you just pay one fee. And that worked great for a really long time until I think it was in Missouri is where this all got started. This guy sold his house, and the appraisal came in about $20,000 short. And the options were not sell it, or he was going to have to come down to make it fit. And he's like, well, if I have to do that, I will, but I don't want to pay all this commission out that I'm paying. I want to, you guys are going to have to help too. And they're, oh no, it's in the MLS system that we pay this guy this. I have to pay that. So a bunch of attorneys got involved in it, and the Department of Injustice got involved in it, and decided that was antitrust and price fixing because of the way that's done. Because there were too many agents out there telling people, hey, you don't owe me a fee, my services are free, which that's not really true, because the seller's paying. They didn't disclose things right and caused a big mess. But anyway, we got our tails beat in court, couple of $1 billion before trebles. And so we've worked all that out. And one of the things that they've worked out, it's really simple stuff. The one thing that the DOJ is really uptight about is that commission is actually advertised in the MLS. Buyer agent commission, there's a field there and either a dollar amount or a percentage. And well, these real estate agents are steering people. If this one pays more commission, they're going to show them that house instead of this one. That's their fear. But in reality, these buyers know more about these houses than we do. with Zillow and Realtor and all these third-party websites, I mean, I don't go sit at a desk and say, okay, here are the 5 houses we're going to look at today. It doesn't work that way anymore. I get screenshots of a house, and they've already telling me which ones they want to see.
Right.
Maybe one time in my career have I done it the old-fashioned way where people would come in and, hey, I found these 5 for you. Let's go see those. So.
Yeah. Well, so basically, how did that impact y'all's ability to earn money?
The thing that everybody is afraid of is that no seller is ever going to pay a buyer's agent commission again, which is, it's not true. There'll be a few that try it. I mean, it would be the same thing. We're back to sellers are paying buyer concessions for closing costs again, because of the change in the market.
Okay, so it didn't really impact you as badly as when I first read it. I thought, oh my Lord, they're going to be driving a lot of agents out of business.
Right.
But I talked to Shandy and I talked to Tamara Kilgore and a couple others, and they said, well, it changes how it's going to be done, but we're still going to get paid.
Right. It's going to be a little bit left-handed for us because we're used to there's my paycheck right there. Now we've got to call the other agent. Hey, or is there any buyer's agent participation? Can you tell me how much it is? And you've got to go through all this. And then I have to go back to my buyer and say, when we had our initial consult, we talked about that I'm going to do my best to collect my commission from either the listing agent or the seller. But there may be instances where that's not the case. Do you still want to see those houses? And this is one of those where they're not paying any commission. Do you still want to see it? And then they've got to make the decision if they want to come out of pocket for my fee or just go to another house where they may pay that fee.
Okay, so it basically put some obstacles in your path more than just eliminated that path. Okay. See, I read that twice in the Wall Street Journal, and it still was like my head's still spinning. That's another reason why I'm not in real estate.
Right.
Because I've looked, my friend that I mentioned earlier, was Zillow, gave us some of the books, because I'd never thought about it. But my wife thought about being like a home presenter. Right. And you have to have certain credentials for that. And I looked at those books and like, no, thank you. And but it was just a beating. But I saw that. My first impression was, this is going to be a real problem for buying and selling homes.
Right. I kind of want us to be positive about it and say that they were trying to fix something that may have been a problem, but the people that they're going to hurt are the ones that need the help the most. That's first-time buyers that are digging quarters and nickels out of the couch, trying to get their down payment together, and now they're going to have to come up with commission money, and those are the people that are going to get hurt, and that's where the cycle starts, is there. So they buy this house, these people move up, and up we go. Well, when that first-time homebuyer segment gets stagnant, it hurts the entire market.
Right. I've been bellyaching a little bit this month about the renovations we do in a house. When you go look at a house for the first time, what do you look at as either a positive or a negative attribute about a house?
Smells. I call them tired houses, where they just, maybe everything is, my house was tired until January. We went through what you did, but it wasn't under duress the way that you did. Yeah. But, it looked like it did in 2006, and they're not as desirable as the ones in the back part of the neighborhood that were built 3 years ago.
Well, that's what we put in the new floors. And my wife had been wanting that for a long, long time, and she was very unhappy with the quality of our carpet. Which, and I'm like, it's okay. And then until we moved the furniture, and I said, she's right. Right. But you would have noticed that first thing, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. Same thing with the popcorn ceilings.
Ooh, yeah. I've seen people walk out of houses because of that, because it's not easy to get rid of that.
Yes, I am aware. Because it's a total mess, and we've been dusting for 3 days now. Right. But we had to have it done, and it wasn't also you get a popcorn ceiling. I don't know why anybody thought that was a good thing at the time, but it just seemed to attract dust.
Oh my God, dust and dust bunnies and everything.
Plus, we had many years ago, we had our air conditioners up in the attic, and we had a leak, and it still had stains, and we tried to paint over it, but you could still tell. Right. And and those are things you would notice right away, right? Right. As far as smells, like animal smells, I guess, dogs mostly.
That, or don't don't cook fish the night before showing, things like that people just don't think about. I tell people it's going to be like getting dressed for the prom every single day until we get this sucker under contract, because you're going to have on your Sunday best, and people don't live like that. Most people do not.
I had another real estate friend said that she'd always have cookies baked the night before, or they have candles, with that cookie smell. And I've gone, my wife likes to look at homes for decorating ideas, and she'll go into these model homes, and they'll be, hey, you have some cookies, and they have this nice aroma and all this, like, it's kind of like, Cinnabon does.
Right, it smells homey,
Yeah, also, I'd imagine, does the furniture itself play into that?
It could. Most of what we see is too much. Where you can't even get around a room for these gigantic sectionals and things they're cool to live on, but they make a pretty decent sized room look really small.
So we spent a good deal of money on this renovation, but I should also look at it as I probably put that's added to the value of the house in my equity if I ever decide to sell it. Which someday it'll be sold. I'm not going to live forever, according to some, but and so when you sell it, hopefully that's where you get recoup your investment, and that's why Robin, my wife, said it's an investment. It's an investment because she said deferred maintenance will kill you. We had that first time we refinanced many years ago. We had it appraised and it came in a lot lower.
Right.
And one of the things that hurt was the outside paint hadn't been replaced. We haven't repainted the outside in like a decade or more, and it was chipped a bit.
Yeah.
And then we had a different kitchen floor then, and it was worn.
Right.
So that's why I've kind of been telling my son, you might want to hold off on buying a house until you really have it, because everything costs, and it's not like you buy the house and you're good to go. This isn't like a rental where you're out in about 18 months. This is probably going to be a while, and you're the one that got to replace that air conditioner or the refrigerator or whatever else.
And we're not just fighting high interest rates right now. I mean, taxes are crazy. Insurance, mine went up again, and my little 1% wind and hail deductible went to 2%.
Yeah, I saw that.
That
mine
stuff,
too.
That's a killer.
Well, I'll say that I had Texas Farm Bureau, and they and they really helped me out when the water leak I had about 3 weeks ago. They were quick, and I got my deductible was 1%, and I got most of that. I recouped most of it. They paid well, so I have no complaints. But I did notice on the renewal that's 2% wind and hail, and and is it on the appraised value by the tax appraiser, or is it about the real estate appraisal?
They have some way of figuring that based on construction costs and things like that. You got to think about an insurance company. I mean, they're going to start maybe from the slab and come back, so they want to know what the 2-bys cost, and they want to know about the cost approach, where we use the sales approach, which is based on comparable sales.
Well, mine's on replacement value.
Yeah.
Okay, and so 2% replacement value, that's $10,000.
Right.
That's a lot of money to come up with. Yep. And I know they crack down on these fly-by-night operators, roofers and such. That's why, again, free plug, old pro, that's why I endorse them, because you know where to find them, and they're not going to hose you.
Right.
But these guys come in and said, we'll overprice
just
you.
beat the deductible.
To beat the deductible. And, that gets you in trouble with the insurance companies.
Right.
And OPRO doesn't mess with that.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of illegal.
It is kind of illegal. Yeah. And but it does. It's something to factor into.
Right.
But I mentioned earlier, but when you buy a home and you have to take care of it and all this other stuff, it's not a rental. But it's getting also where more and more of the houses are rentals. I read in the Star Telegram, I think it was last week, that 26% of the houses are rentals.
Right.
How's that impacted your market?
That's kind of what caused the hockey stick to begin with, is because many of the people that we were bidding against with buyers were Wall Street. Wall Street and these hedge funds have figured out single-family residences as a pretty good way to hedge money. And so maybe 25-30% of the properties owned right now are owned by corporate owners or non-occupied owners.
Well, that wasn't just here in Fort Worth. That's also in Oklahoma City.
Right.
Like I keep mentioning my son, because we had an extensive conversation about this house he's looking at and all this other business. But he said, that most of the houses that he could, feasibly afford are already been bought up by BlackRock or these other groups, and that it really makes it tough on young homeowners because that most of these rentals are starter type homes, right? They're not homes over in Westover Hills.
Nah.
Yeah, they're usually about the 275 to 300,000 range. And so a lot of entry level buyers are basically getting shut out by Wall Street.
Right. The thing that bothers me the most about that is and it's real easy to figure out, go look at the differences in net worth between people that own their home and people that rent. Mm-hmm. And it's huge. Mm-hmm. And when corporate America owns all these houses, people are going to have to rent longer, that's not good. Because I know that 7% interest is high, but 100% is really high. Yeah. And that's how much that rent interest rate is 100%.
Yeah, and I've talked to other people around my son's age, some of his friends and others, same story.
Yep.
Very same story. And we're not talking about, two people that are making minimum wage. We're talking about two people that are, professionals.
Right.
And they're making, pretty good money.
Pretty good income.
Yeah.
Yep.
Nearly 100,000 or something like that. And they still can't get into a home.
Yep.
And
it's tough. I hope that they get some help.
I don't know what kind of help they can get because the government, and I think in part, caused this to happen. I mean, also the economics of things.
Right.
But every time the government seems like it gets involved, it just makes it worse.
Right.
And it triggers inflation or triggers some other crisis. I mean, part of the reason why we had that crash in 2008 was because the government was
they gave away too much money.
Yeah, they were so insistent on home ownership.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just the Bush administration. This was going on in the Clinton administration.
It started with the Clintons. And, yep. They wanted more people to own and put pressure on banks. Mm-hmm. Hey, you need to make loans to these people too. Right. And we're watching that now.
Yeah. My cousin was a banker for a while, and he had to deal with, local loans and such,
right.
and they were given priority, and even if they weren't credit worthy
right.
or not. And so I was watching this happen. Now again, I'm in a different situation, own a home and all this other stuff, but I'm watching, people that had really sketchy incomes, and I don't mean like illegal, I mean, but very unstable maybe,
right.
Not consistent income. And they're getting in for zero down and getting houses and also getting those adjustable rate mortgages where the first 5 years you can afford it, and then boom, that fifth year,
right.
sixth year, it jacks up like 3%,
yep.
3 times.
And unfortunately, they qualified them on the very lowest rate instead of somewhere, and it just got on top of them.
Do they still? We called them ARMs then. They still call them that? Okay.
They still do that, and that's still a viable product. But man, you got to be careful. They're not for everybody. You know, and a lot of people don't have the. I can't think of they just don't have the stomach for it. I want to know exactly what it is.
Oh, yeah. I never even considered that.
Right.
Even because, of course, when you own a home and you have a rate of a certain level, you get swamped with offers to refinance. Mm-hmm. And they'd say you could pay up to, cut your rate to almost nothing with an adjustable rate mortgage. And my wife and I said, that ain't happening.
Right.
And then, of course, in 2008 happened and all those people started crashing. You had such a glut on the market of houses.
You couldn't give them away then.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it just, killed Phoenix and Las Vegas and Atlanta and
Burleson.
And Burleson, I know it had to have hurt Burleson, but I just was reading more about the bigger cities.
Right.
And Dallas got hammered and that kind of thing.
My first 3 buyers, I showed them all over 40 properties before they picked one. And I thought, what in the world did I get myself into? Because it takes a long time to show 40 houses.
Mm-hmm. So back onto that, what would you suggest to somebody who wants to sell a house? What would you say, here's what you need to do to present your house better?
It kind of depends on the property, but like I say, looks good from the street, smells nice, not a bunch of deferred maintenance. Nobody wants to pay $375 for a house and go in there and start working on it. It just,
Well, I mentioned earlier, I'm not a yard guy,
right?
But I'm going to keep that yard decent because I don't want people to think that's what the inside looks like. It's a mess, because if your yard's a mess, inside's going to be a mess. So after we're done here, after a couple of errands, I have to go work in the yard.
Right.
And it's a beating, but that's home ownership is a beating in a sense, but it beats renting. It really does in a lot of ways because it's just amazing. When my wife and I first got married, our rent, and we were living in a pretty decent apartment, $325 a month.
Right. My first one was $260.
Yeah. Of course, when I was in college down in Waco, it was about $150.
Right.
And I was overpaying. I mean, it was a dump.
Yeah.
But
I'll tell you a personal story about home ownership. My wife got divorced 2008, wound up with the house, but one of the stipulations was as soon as she got out of nursing school, she was supposed to refinance that house and get her husband off of it. Well, when that happened, they'd paid like $215 for it. It appraised for $175. And thank goodness they paid a bunch of money down. She was still able to do it and stuck it out in that house. It's worth $425 now.
You still have that house?
Yeah. It's the one we live in. Yeah.
What a deal.
And so, it's still better to own. We're in a weird place in the market right now. It's not perfect, but like I say, if somebody that's renting or, man, if you need to move and you can afford it, really the interest rate is the one thing you can change. Well, when the rates drop, we're looking at if it drops 1%, there's 1 million people that won't qualify today that will. So here they come. So here we go back to bidding houses up and even shorter inventory than now. The one thing that you'll be able to change is when the rates come down, you can change that. You can't change that you had to pay $30,000 over or, buy a house you don't like or things that people had to do.
Well, when we first built our house in 91, it was 9.25.
Yeah.
And then we refinanced when it got down to about 7.
Right.
And then we started refinancing. I think we've done it 4 times.
Yeah.
One for the rates, and another time for college. 3 times. Yeah, college expenses because both my kids are going to college, and one is going. They're both going to private colleges, Baylor and OBU, and then when about 19, I knew I had some house repairs coming, roof and air conditioner. So that's what we used it for.
Right.
It was almost like a bank.
Yep.
But back then, it wasn't that big a deal. It was, you had to go through all the process. But it was, we went from like 3.85 to 4.25 because I was taking money. Now, it seems like, correct me if I'm wrong, but if the rates come down, won't the value of the houses go up? And so, are you really making money or not?
I'm just saying, if you buy one, and the only really negative. I don't think that the prices are ever going to get much lower than they are now, because things cost too much money.
Yeah,
there's just
not just because it's your profession, but you would advise somebody like my son to bite the bullet and get in the house.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
Well,
now, if he already has a house and just wants to because he doesn't like this house anymore, just wants this one, then you got to think about that and put a pencil to it. But I mean, throwing that money away. What if my wife would have left and rented, and lost all that equity that we have now?
Well, would you advise somebody that would buy a house that probably is underpriced but has a significant amount of work to be done to it just to get into a house?
To me, carpet, paint, things to kind of make it pretty. I wouldn't go into, it costs $15,000 to change out an air conditioning system now for something basic. You got to watch that. Water heaters are $1,500.
Yeah.
Things like that you got to be careful of. But
that's what I was telling him, because he's looking at a property that would take a lot of work, and I'm saying, I don't think you realize just how expensive carpeting and roofing is.
Yeah.
And you think you might be getting a bargain on the rate, but you're going to have to spend at least 25 to 30% more, just to get it up to living standards in some cases. I hear, and everybody watches those shows on HGTV, flipping houses and stuff like that. My wife loves those shows. I'm like, come on, there's a ball game on somewhere.
Right, yeah.
But,
let's go watch C-SPAN.
Yeah, right. Ooh, that's more exciting sometimes.
Right, yeah.
But it's like, I'm just reluctant. I would be reluctant to buy a home, because it's like, if it's an older home, it's when about 6 months later you find out you have a crack in your foundation or something like that. Sometimes sellers aren't totally forthcoming, are they?
Right. You've got to have somebody looking after you. You've got to have an advocate.
Well, I'm going to take a kind of a switch here. We're going to talk about the Cleveland Railroaders. So,
okay.
There you go. Got this from Kay Goodell. She's going to be on next Tuesday. We're going to talk about the Railroaders. I don't know if you've been out there much, but it's a good ballpark, great place to watch baseball. And they got lots going on. On July 4th, they're going to have a massive fire show, and they're also going to have, it's a special night. They do a lot of charity nights, nonprofit nights, and it's going to be for Crazy Eights. I don't know if you know them. Yeah. Okay, good. Lisa Schwartz, you probably don't know her. Also, we're looking here on the 5th, the second biggest fireworks show. Second biggest fireworks show. But I know the big one on July 4th is a lot of people will go sit in the parking lot and watch the fireworks. And they get fireworks all over the place. But that's a really good show. Also, they have them on the next night. And then on Saturday, Wild West night. And it's going to be Pete in Cavilla bobblehead giveaway. You know, it's really funny. I don't know how far your Rangers background goes, but back when I was younger, Pete in Cavilla was a Texas Ranger. And he was,
that's right.
Yeah, and he was a big player for us and hit a lot of home runs and all this other stuff. So now he's our manager there at the Railroad. So it's going to be Pete in Cavilla bobblehead giveaway. And then every Sunday they have Spike's Kids Club, which, you know, Spike is their mascot, and basically they'll let the kids run the bases after the game, and they'll meet the players, and
that's cool.
Yeah, it's really nice. They got lots going on. What I like about the Railroaders in particular is the way they've embraced the community, and the community's embraced them. They do a lot of stuff. They did Saturday night, did it for our Harvest House, did it for Next Step Women's Center, which, by the way, is Thursday's guest. They did it for first responders and whatnot. But so check out all these shows coming up next week. I mean, shows, what am I saying? Check out all these games next week. And, you know, fireworks, hot dogs, can't get more, you know, Coke.
And
beer.
what else is there?
Yeah, I mean, it's America.
Right.
And it's good baseball, too. You know, first time I went out there, I didn't know what to expect, to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
It's good baseball. It's about AA level.
Yeah.
And
that's fun enough to watch.
It's fun. It's good baseball, and it's affordable, and it's easy to get to, and, you know, and right now the Rangers, and they need to pick up the pace, buddies. Right. Anyway, we got a couple of minutes left. You fill us in what we should know about real estate.
Don't be afraid of it. If the situation fits, my two rules are: do you want to move? If that's yes, and can you afford the payment on the house that you're looking at is yes, well then that's really all you got to worry about. Over time, it's always been a good investment, and I think it always will.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, it's despite all the additional expense of the house, it's paid off, and you don't. I really do feel for this younger generation.
Me too.
I really do. I hope things change.
Yep.
And who knows what it's going to take to change. Taylor, thanks for all your nifty handling of the computer.
Nifty handling of the computer.
Yeah, that's right.
Always. All
right. So we got lots going on. Like I said, Thursday we have Next Step Women's Center. I'm just checking out my schedule right now so I don't misspeak. I know I mentioned Kay Goodell will be here Tuesday, and so we're going to have the Crowley House of Hope next Monday.
Okay.
They're just about a block over.
Right.
They do a lot of good stuff. They really do. And thank you, Jeff, for your coming in. Thank you for your sponsorship.
Thank you for what you do for the small business people, and especially for these nonprofits, because I hadn't heard of about half of them until I started listening to the show.
Well, thank you. I'm very blessed because I sit here and I get to see all these good things being done by all these people.
Right.
I feel very, very blessed.
Yep.
All right, and we'll see y'all Thursday.